Okay, ticked over to 7 o'clock, so I think we'll get started. My name is Kathy. I'm the coordinator at Gawler Environment Centre. Great that so many people have been able to join us tonight for the Verges Alive information session. I'd first like to start by acknowledging and paying respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands I'm working from, and acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that attendees tonight are based on. We acknowledge their deep feelings of attachment and relationship to country, and we respect and value their past, present and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. Now, we have a couple of presenters tonight, which is fantastic. First up, we will have Janet Willoughby, who is the Open Space Community Planner at the City of Charles Sturt. And she'll tell us all about their successful Verges Alive project. And we will also have Hayley Edwards, who is the Landscape Coordinator at the town of Gawler, who will speak a bit about processes for applying to do verge gardening in the town of Gawler. And obviously people will need to contact their own councils to find out details about what they need to do in their own areas. But hopefully the session tonight will give everyone some inspiration for what they might be able to do with their own yard, and also potentially inspire some community groups to perhaps get together and start larger projects themselves. So without further ado, I will hand over to Janet from Charles Sturt Council.
So in February 2020, Council endorsed its community verge development policy. And with that, it was accompanied by our community verge development policy guidelines and checklists, which I guess the whole idea of it was simplifying the process. So we moved from a really bureaucratic process that could take anything up to 6 weeks to work through. People would have to apply formally, then they would have to send us a design. A council officer would go out and assess the site and come back, contact the person, and eventually, hopefully, issue a permit. So it was pretty lengthy and really quite, it was just really bureaucratic. And I think it just put a huge number of people off. So I guess the reasons for wanting to put this policy in place and develop the guidelines and checklists, yes, to make the process easier, but also I guess there's a lot of benefits that are almost hidden. But one of the things we felt was important was that our verges are appropriately developed. We don't want all sorts of amazing things happening on verges that create sightline problems or hazards. We wanted to improve the amenity in our streets, create more habitat and biodiversity opportunities, because really when you think about the amount of space that is, or the amount of land that's consumed by verges, it's actually quite a significant amount of land. I think it doesn't matter which council area you go to, you have some beautiful street environments and some pretty harsh street environments. And obviously, if you're landscaping verges, you can really soften that and create a much nicer living environment and complement our built environment. But the hidden sort of things are that more connected and engaged community. When people when they step outside of their homes and they're out in the street environment, they start talking to each other, they start meeting their neighbours, and you get a lot more surveillance over the street. And that's probably been one of the really big positives of this program, is that people and communities are connecting. And of course, climate change mitigation, so trying to get more canopy cover through people wanting street trees as well as landscaping their verge. So that whole climate change mitigation process, and I'm probably preaching to the converted, but when you look at the projections for 2070 and their medium projections, I won't read them all out. You can see them. They're not pretty, and I personally believe that communities can have a significant impact on how we mitigate climate change, urban heat. So part of the process of working through our new policy and the guidelines and checklist with our elected members was to talk to Sophie Thompson and get her to actually deliver some of the story to our elected members. Sophie went out on a 35-degree day with her little trusty thermometer and measured the temperature coming off different surfaces. And what you see here is a 35-degree day. The first picture is just natural turf, and it was 33 degrees. Artificial turf was 65 degrees, concrete 47, and the roadway was 52 degrees, which is, a little bit concerning when you think about the number of people that like to use artificial turf as a way to not have to worry about their verge or their front or backyard, for that matter, really. So one of the key things we did with the policy was remove the ability to use artificial turf in the street environment. So we've not made that retrospective. I think that would be pretty harsh because it's not a cheap exercise to install artificial turf. But from 2020 onwards, artificial turf just doesn't get a look in, and that's becoming more common with councils. So these are nothing to be proud of. These are in Woodville Park and Allenby Gardens. And these verges, this is early spring, and it was a pretty common sight across our city. And this was another motivator for trying to get community more involved in developing and maintaining their verge environment. We would see weeds at shoulder height at times in early spring. We've since implemented unfortunately, a chemical program, so a broadleaf weed program that we apply prior to spring every year, and that has reduced a lot of the problem. But this was it was a great motivator for us to start looking at what we were doing with our verges. Okay, so basically what I did was write up our guidelines and our checklist in really simple, friendly language. If you can go through our checklist and tick off all the boxes, then we will just send you a permit. We don't come and look at it. It's designed to just make it a very streamlined process. In 221 of the Local Government Act, and that basically says that when you work in the verge, you're working in the road environment. When you work in the road environment, you need a permit to do so. So I guess that's about the sort of things that go into the road environment. So no structures as such. We need to ensure sightline clearances for vehicles, and we need all the different services to be able to come in and do what they need to do. They need to be able to empty your garbage bins, all those sorts of pretty mundane, boring things, but they still need to happen. Part of that process, we worked through allowing people to plant vegetables in the verge, and we're encouraging people to try and create little community gardens in their street. And that has happened on a few occasions, which has been really, really nice. The other thing that's been a little bit harder to get through, but we finally got it through, and I have to say it took 2.5 years for us to get to where we're at. And that was working with lawyers and risk management and the Local Government Association. But we now allow planter boxes in Verges as well. They are wicking beds, which for people who don't know what a wicking bed is, it's kind of like a really big self-watering pot. So we allow those. People can paint them. We subsidise them really heavily. They're $300, or $330 to buy retail. We'll charge our residents $70. And that's proven to be really, really popular. We have all sorts of links in our guidelines which help people to make some calls about what they might do in their verge. So we have our obviously a link to our customer care team. We have links so people can have a look at what sort of species are weeds, because often people will plant things like agapanthus and gazanias and the like in their verges because they're tough and they grow really well, but they're also weeds of national significance. And we have a link to Dial Before You Dig. So if people are going to be really excavating their verge, say if they want to plant veggies, they need to test it and then, if need be, replace the soil. $20 a donation, you can have your soil tested. And links to the Botanic Gardens Plant Select tool, which is really helpful for people in making decisions about what they might put into their bird. I love this little Margaret Mead quote: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." And I have to say that one of the things that I'm finding in all of our community gardening projects is small groups of people are making massive differences. We have so many examples of different types of verge gardening, and the gentleman in the green shirt here, he's created a really lovely little community garden in his street in Centerfoot Park. So they have 11 or 12 wicking beds, and he's met people. He's lived in the street for years, and he's met people that he's not even spoken to in the past. The garden at the bottom of the screen there, the collection of wicking beds. So that's the West Street Dog Garden, and there's a lot of apartments in that area, and people have come out of their apartments. They come out to take their dogs out, and they started to talk and thought they'd like to create a garden. So we've created this garden, and it's just resulted in a lovely sense of community. Video I wanted to show you.
I mean, this sort of project definitely brings the community together, and I think the fact that we help create community spirit, we help accept everybody for who they are and what they bring to their community, I think it just helps them feel like they're part of the network that they live in. And they start to share and they start to talk to one another more. They start to help one another out. We get to work together as a team, and we're greening up our hood, really. And it's beautiful. I think it's relaxing. I think it makes you feel joyful. I think you just feel at peace with the world when you're actually out and you've got your hands in the soil and you're working with it, and you're playing with plants and insects.
Basically, it's an idea that is drawing the community together. And I love wicking beds, and I asked the neighbours, and they said, what a great idea. The interest is just phenomenal. Poor old lady over the road there, we hadn't really been connected. She had a fall, 36 hours on the floor. That's what I don't want to happen. I want it to, everyone to be able to access each other, know what's going on, and look after each other. Some of the people up the street here, I haven't met before. So it's working. It really is working, and people are talking to each other. It's fabulous.
I think we've seen a lot of change in the neighbourhood since we started doing things like these Verge projects. You sort of see it's a bit of like a domino effect where other people sort of seem.
So video is of a project that we did with Tracy Davis, who works at the Port Environment Centre and is a very active and amazing resident of Kilkenny. And they applied for a grant from council and developed a whole group of verges in their street, which we then used to develop a booklet of examples for people so they could go and look at different types of plantings in verges. And that formed part of our Verges Alive event. So the event involved a whole bunch of different community people, external people like the Semaphore Composting Network, SA Water. Sophie Thompson came and guided people through some ideas that she had. They could take their book. And we also had Verge plant packs, which were 10 plants for $10, and people could purchase up to 30 plants on the day and then go away and plant those in their verge. So when they purchase those plants, they then would go onto our do not mow and do not spray list, so contractors didn't come along and mow over the top of their beautiful gardens. And that's actually proved to be incredibly popular, and we're running it again this year on a much larger scale as part of the Nature Festival. So our little booklet is available online, so if you wanted to go to the Charles Sturt website, you can find that online, and I'm hoping you're seeing the cover photo of the booklet. So there's all sorts of designs in there. So there's photos, and then there's our landscape architect put together some really easy to follow designs that have more traditional gardens. I'll have a veggie garden, native garden, so all different styles of gardens. So people can go, have a look, say, I like that one, come back to our Verges Alive event, purchase their plants, and go home and develop their new garden. And it's the uptake has been really good. And this is just, I guess, reinforcing the lovely community connections that are made through these projects. It's not just individuals going out and doing their verge. It'll be a whole street that will come together and new slide, come together and develop their living environments. I was talking to Kathy before about her opening slide photo, and they'll remain nameless, but these gardens that you see here, or the first two photos, are ex-politicians and quite prominent South Australian politicians who live in Woodville Park, and they garden in their verge and their neighbours' really very substantial verge. And her section of verge is ornamental. His section of verge is all food. And he has 5 different types of garlic. He has all sorts of amazing plants in there, and they feed themselves and they feed the neighbourhood with this garden. It's really quite exceptional. So he did go in, he took all the existing soil out of the verge and established his garden there, but it's quite a beautiful thing to see as well. And if you're an ABC listener, you might have heard him a while back on the ABC when someone just decided to wholesale harvest his verge. We do, that's him again in the top centre garden photo.
Janet, I'd just like to say he's actually passed me a peach from his peach tree. He lives just down the street.
Oh, look, what he does in that garden is beautiful.
Janet, I was going to ask, I'm in like a local community group of residents, and we actually share seeds. And I was wondering, is that something that you endorse at council as part of the Verges Alive?
Look, we endorse that as part of all of our community gardening groups and processes, projects. you'd be aware that we have probably more community gardens within the city of Charles Sturt than any other council area. We also have lots of community gardening groups. You would see the Woodville Park group. They are absolutely amazing. We're doing propagation and seed sharing wherever. So yes, by all means, give me a hoy and we can have a look at it. The website has a whole bunch of information on it. You can see the videos, and if you wanted to go to our community gardening pages as well, there's some really nice videos and information on there as well around what we're doing in the community gardening space, because often we have community gardening groups. So they're people who just take on pieces of community land or public open space, and they plant it up and they maintain it with council support. So we've got a lot of railway screens and quite a few sort of nature strip areas that are being developed and maintained in such an amazing way by our community. So that's really nice to look at as well. It
does look very, very amazing what's going on in the city of Charles Sturt, and I'm sure it'll be a great inspiration to many people.
What we are doing is really exciting, and we're seeing our community do some amazing things. Our contact details are there if you'd like to give me a call, and we can talk about it. But obviously, Hayley's the guru in Gawler.
Well, I might just kick off that we do have a application online for our Verges. So I think that was a question from Sam. So it's called a Section 221 application. So as a bit of background, your council, your local council, they control and care for your Verge. That's their asset. So if you would like to do any changes to your Verge, because it's a council asset, you basically need to submit a design and some material. So what plants you want to use, what aggregates you want to use to council for approval. We've recently gone through a similar process where we've reviewed our application guideline against certain policies we've released. So beautifying Gawler, the beautification plan, we've sort of implemented that into the application. So if you are beautifying your Verge, there's no application fee. So our process is normally you go online. So I've given Kathy all the links and the steps. So it should be quite a simple process for you to follow along. So essentially you go on the website and you download the application. It looks similar to this. I don't know if you can see that. Essentially, you just fill out your details and then the type of proposed alterations. So you can make changes to your driveway, your Verge, add some trees, you can change the footpath, irrigation, things like that. Then you've just got to provide a simple sketch plan to scale and dimension. So it can be drawn on the application or you can submit that as an attachment. And normally the response time is a week to 2 weeks. So you'll get a record number with council. You'll be probably transferred to me. So just quickly introduce myself. So I'm new to Gawler and I'm the landscapes coordinator. So I will essentially review your application against things like our climate emergency plan, our beautification plan, our biodiversity plan, and I'll provide sort of comment and assistance with your design. So you'll provide the intent and what you wish to create, and I will sort of comment and try and assist you in creating that, whether that be butterfly habitat or food share and security, growing vegetables. I'll provide that assistance. And normally within 2 weeks, you will receive approval or maybe some considerations from council. So there are certain things we don't allow. It's mainly due to either maintenance or maybe it's against our policy. So similar to Charles Sturt, we don't endorse artificial turf. Not only does it sort of warm the environment, it also kills all the great microorganisms in the soil, all the good worms and insects and sunlight penetration, which makes your soil organic and vibrant. So yeah, and I just like to say, Janet, I actually live in Woodville Park. This is where my home is. And I've seen these lovely Verges near the Woodville Park train station.
Yep.
It was so funny though. I came out and there's this little kid, his mum had got in, there's a coffee shop there if no one's been to that train station.
Mhm.
And the mum's got in to get a coffee and the kid's just sitting there. And I can tell he's noticed it's a bit of basil or something. And so he's quickly looked around at everybody and, no one's really looking at him. And he's quickly torn off a bit of basil and popped it into his mouth. So
Oh, that's lovely.
I thought that was great. But yeah, it's just the Verges, there's so many beautiful Verges near where I live, and it's all to do with, like, hats off to you, Janet, and your team, because yes, the process can be lengthy. There's a lot of sort of steps within that process, but I think the outcome is just amazing. I walk the dog and people are talking about, oh, so I see you've put marigolds next to your tomatoes. Is that getting rid of bugs and things? Or like, it's great. I love that. And I think it's definitely climate change mitigation, like you said. So we at Gawler Council, we are really trying to improve this process and really support our community to sort of, take ownership, because it just makes, there's so many benefits to it, and so much opportunity within your Verge.
We do have plenty of time for questions if anyone is keen to ask. I'm happy to have we've got Luke Mitchell has raised his hand.
Things in regards to the application fee being waived to beautify your Verge. Where do we find that? Because everything that I've found says that there's an $84 fee for the application.
Yep. So this is it's recently come in. It was at a council meeting, I think a couple months ago, where it was waived. My department, infrastructure engineering, supported it and it was processed. So yes, our marketing team, one of our lovely ladies has had parental leave and someone's had COVID, and we're just a bit behind on the website, but rest assured that there is definitely no fee. And if you have paid a fee, it will be refunded to you. At the moment, Section 221 applications are going to Shannon and myself. There's a couple others that are supporting, and the first thing our response says is, you will be refunded if you've paid the fee. So there's no fee, so don't worry.
Oh, thank you. And sorry, I don't know. Can I ask, what are the rough guidelines for plant height, plant variation?
Yeah.
Because we're in Springwood Estate, and we just literally ripped everything out. They had 2 agapanthus and the rest was just gravel. I think 200 mils of gravel. The soil was terrible.
So I'm new to council at Gawler, but some of the concerns and the issues that we've had over the past couple of years is maintenance. So similar to those pictures of all the weeds, we were getting a lot of that. So the maintenance team, we just said, look, we're going to make a standard where, we just do gravel if the resident isn't willing to take that over. But we are looking at support financially to assist you. So if you are given gravel and you do want to bring your Verge Alive, we are looking into ways we can sort of help you out there, whether our town services come out and we get rid of the gravel and give you some topsoil. That is definitely something under discussion. Let me just look at my notes. So I know there's definitely a couple things where we do not endorse it. Artificial turf, no. Things like plant species over 500 mil in height, we don't normally endorse. Like I said, a lot of these we can negotiate depending on your location, but it goes back to what Janet said about visibility. You are in a road reserve, so there are certain requirements that come into play. Things like trees in your Verge aren't always appropriate. So the Gawler Council have a street tree guide. We've got a select species we've approved. But if there is a tree that you would love to have in your Verge, more than welcome to propose it to us, because we're always welcome to negotiate our tree species guide. And if it is a tree that others have requested, we'll review and potentially add that into our guide. So things we don't normally like is, plants that are over 0.5 metre high, plants that have spikes and thorns, because it's a bit of a risk for pedestrians, cyclists, people using that street. We don't endorse large rocks and stones or structures such as walls and fencing within your Verge. It goes back to what Janet said about things like the bin truck coming, so the servicing of that area. And then it also comes back to public use and safety. So there is like that legality there for council, because we own that asset and we maintain that asset. So if something were to go wrong, legally, we are the ones that are responsible. So yes, things like
stepping pavers, because everyone parks at the front of our place and walks over the verge anyway.
Yeah,
we would like just a couple of stepping pavers. Is that something that would be classed?
Yeah, definitely. Some people who only have to say gravel or granulated sand, they are more than welcome to get rid of that, put plants in, put in stepping stones. When I say rocks, I mean like big boulders, or you've done some in situ concrete pour retaining walls in your verge for some reason. Things like that. You just think if someone's gonna have a light off the road or have an accident, it's just very dangerous. So stepping stones, definitely, that sounds great. And it would be amazing if us as a council could develop a guide similar to this Verges Alive guide. So to everyone listening, I saw some questions about, are there designs, formal versus informal, things like that. So I have seen, because I live here, Sturt do have some designs. Also, if you're at Gawler, there's the Northern and York Landscape Board. So if you Google Northern, so Northern and York Landscape Board, they have a coastal planting guide. So they provide species, just say agapanthus, and they have it in a table and it says what not to plant. And then next to it, it's got what to plant, and it's got alternative species that are much more exciting biodiversity wise. They're native, they're hardy. You can choose to have butterfly attracting or bird attracting, or lizards if you like. So the Landscape Board provides that information, and we have some links to that. They also provide designs, so similar to what Sturt did. So there's the formal courtyard. If you've got a townhouse and you like that kind of structured look, there's like the bush garden, there's the butterfly and bird attracting garden. So we do have a lot of resources within our board that we can share. So.
Excellent. And Gawler Environment Centre also has a little booklet, native garden plants for the Gawler region. So we can provide copies of that to people who are interested as well.
Hello. Sorry, I was just clapping because that's a really good presentation from everybody.
Clapping, of course. Excellent.
I actually have a question for Janet. I was at the library during your plant giveaway where you had Costa the gnome talking to the kids. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that day and I loved how you tied in native plants and sustainability with teaching kids about healthy eating and nutrition. And then you also had the recycled food waste bin giveaways in the library. I had no idea this event was on. I remember I was returning a book because I'd been naughty and it was overdue. And then I saw Costa was there and there were native plants. So yeah, I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about that maybe.
I'd love to tell you a lot about it, but it's not actually a project that I am involved in. It's it's actually run by the libraries. And Mark Hannon, one of my colleagues, he is associated with it as well. So it's another 10 for 10 program. So 10 plants for $10 program, and Costa comes in every year, and they run the Get Your Garden on project. But I'm sorry, it's not actually my project, so I can't tell you a lot about how the libraries have worked it. I run the Nature Festival event and the Verges Alive event with Sophie Thompson, which is different again. So, but yeah, it's an annual event. Costa comes every year. It's linked in with the libraries, and it's just a wonderful program. But my apologies, it's not something that is I'm all over.
Yes, and Costa has recently started following Gawler Environment Centre. Just saying, out of the blue, out of nowhere. We're pretty happy. Look.
Sorry, just another one. If there's a parcel of land that is looked after by the council, so we're in a court, and at the end of our court, we've got this spacious land that I think there's some water pipe that goes behind it, the concrete water pipe, and we've got, I think, 3 trees, and it's nowhere near enough. It's not planted up, at all, and like it's pretty average. Is there a process to be able to apply for the council to re-look at that and maybe try and re-landscape that?
A good question. I would suggest emailing council and attentioning myself, so Hayley Edwards, landscape coordinator. That will come to me as a CRM, which is sort of council speak for. It will be sent to me and I will have to action it and provide a response. I can, yeah, it's tricky. I've had a couple of requests. So someone's wanted to buy a house and they want to put potentially a tree belt in the neighbouring property, which is just like open space near a highway. So there are a couple of factors. So we don't always own that land. Sometimes it's owned by DIT, so state government. Sometimes it's owned by the highway commissioner. So sometimes we don't own that land. We can't do anything about it. But what you've just described sounds like something we could potentially work with you over. It reminds me of what Janet showed, where the community got together and had that raised garden bed planter situation on their court. But no, so the only things I can think of would be like maintenance and irrigation. So there might not be a water meter there. So you might potentially have to, have potable water from your tap and go water your plants. Potentially it could be a couple of road issues there with the whatever you're planning, whether that be trees or not. But if you write an email to council and you attention myself, it will come to me and I'll be able to research within the departments and get back to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, okay. We have a question from Gus Thompson.
This was partially in response to Luke's question. This is something me and a few others in my suburb of St Mary are trying to chase up with our local council is greening a park in St Mary's. And one thing we've come across is the Green Adelaide grassroots grants, which are open at the moment. So there is a bit of a push from state government to try and get these sort of grassroots movements happening. So Luke, that's something we'll look into. We've been chasing state government as well as the council to try and get this happening. So there's definitely room for that sort of thing, I think.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
No worries. That was all from me.
Okay. Just flicking through the screens to make sure I haven't missed anyone.
Just going back to Gus's comment, there are grants, definitely. There's also, so places like State Flora, they do plant giveaways where you can get tube stock really cheap. They've got a couple nurseries. One's in, it's near, there's one in Murray Bridge and then there's one in, I think it's Belair, near Belair. Yeah, so I've been to that one. I did a project in Scotch College once and they were great. So there are big bulk nurseries that potentially can give you quite cheap plant stock. And they're always really friendly and they're always willing to, if you take photos of your verge or your garden, they're always willing to help you out and give you suggestions. So I would definitely recommend not only funding, but going to these nurseries, especially the native ones. So State Flora in Belair is great.
And also Gawler Environment Centre runs an annual native plant sale called the Understory Project, where you can order specific boxes of plants, say lots of 20 or lots of 50. And we have ones that are particularly for kind of attracting bees or attracting butterflies, or you can order a mixed box and they're very, very cheap. I think it works out to be about, $1.50 or so per plant. So it is a very good offer indeed. You can check that out on our website, which is basically gawlerenvironmentcentre.org.au. And orders are open until September. You order online and then you pick up you do need to be able to pick up the plants in Gawler. That's the only thing.
And now is the time to plant as well, especially if you have no irrigation. We've got all the rains coming, so get those plants in the ground because, their roots will take off with all the water. It'd be great.
Provenance Plants is another one that's good for native tube stock. So they're in Salisbury, I think. Yeah.
And there's also Barossa Bush Gardens in Nuriootpa and Kersbrook Land Care Nursery in Williamstown. that's very good as well. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Thank you so much, Janet and Hayley. So, yes, Janet will send me through links and documents and things that I'll be able to forward on to everyone. And the same with Hayley, some of the documents to do with the processes in the town of Gawler, which I can pass on to people who are interested. So, yes, I think it's been a very informative session, and thanks very much to everyone who came along and joined in.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Good night.